Hi everyone, welcome to our regular Q&A session, and from today on it's going to be me, and I'm always going to have a very nice guest from our sleep coach school, and today it is Coach Alina with me. So hi Alina, how are you?
Hi Veronika. I'm doing really good. Thanks. How are you?
I'm good. So are you getting for Christmas?
Yeah, I mean, I'm basically in this kind of like a low key Christmassy mode, so it's you know, getting ready for, having some days off during this time with family.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. I
What
was
about
getting,
you?
yeah, I was getting presents already today, and we have the Christmas tree set up, and I decorated the house nicely. So not everything is ready, not everything is perfect because I have small kids, and with them it's always difficult and always mess in the house. But uh, I'm really looking forward to Christmas and when and the joy of the kids at under the Christmas tree. So I hope,
Yeah.
yeah. So I hope. You will enjoy the Christmas, and I'm talking about Christmas because most likely this is the yeah, I'm going to meet you next time for Q&A in January, and we have actually already some questions that arrived before our live Q&A has started, but everybody is very welcome to post your questions, and we can start. So we have here a question from Tom Timlin. Hi Daniel, I'm coming off pills and committing to a non-drug approach like CBTI or your program. Do you agree it's better to come off med first so you know if success is due to program, not the pill? So, what do you think, Ali?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think it requires a little bit more kind of like in-depth answer. So I could spend like talking a lot about this topic, but just briefly, just to say that the way how I understand the kind of work, especially like what we discuss normally, like in the Sleeper Schools channel, is that it's not really about the external means to resolve insomnia. It's more about this understanding where our fears and hyperarousal is actually coming from. So it's not so much about the actual decision whether to take something or not, whether to taper off something or not. It's more about really understanding how this whole thing works and what kind of like maintains it. Because then when we gain this understanding, our decision making becomes, I would say, easier, and the choices start to seem more clear. In terms of these kind of decisions, like what's better to do first, the program or coming off meds. So of course, first of all, I want to say that that's not the medical advice, but what the first thing that comes to my mind is that it doesn't really matter what goes first. It's not like a requirement or anything that we have to absolutely take away all sorts of like support as we navigate this journey, because in a way medication or any sort of like supplements or anything what you can think of that we use it as a like help with sleep, it's a form of comfort and safety. And during insomnia, we usually feel the lack of the safety. So I feel like taking all safety blankets all at once, that can be a bit of a drastic change, and not everyone is ready for that. So I usually notice that when people approach it in a gentle manner, in a very kind of like self-kind and non-pressuring way, that's usually more helpful. So I don't know if that answers Tom's question, but this is just my general thoughts. What do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah, absolutely. And I really like that you have highlighted that to take off all the crutches and safety blankets would be too drastic. And because I really like that. What I like the most about Daniel's approach is that it takes the best out of various programs, and it pursues the path of least resistance. What feels the least resistant, what feels the most comfortable for the people that helps them to befriend wakefulness, to be okay with all the discomfort. Then this is what helps to overcome the fear, because fear is really, really a difficult emotion. And when we are afraid and scared, it's really difficult for us to take all the safety blankets at once, just like you said. So really, you totally can allow yourself to maintain all these safety blankets at the beginning, but as you are more, as you feel more, I want to say confident, because we discuss a lot this kind of confidence, because we cannot gain this sleep confidence, because sleep is more about, uh, in the terms of insomnia, it's more about confidence that there is nothing wrong with us, not really about confidence about sleep, because we never can predict how we will sleep the night or following night or whatever. But having this kind of confidence that we are safe, and even if this kind of safety crutch like meds will help us, then it's completely okay. And when we feel ready, then we can slowly and surely take all these kind of safety crutches along the way.
Yeah, yeah, nicely said.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I think we have answered this question, and we have this really nice thank you note here from Astro Inferno. Hi Daniel. First of all, thank you for your channel. I enjoyed binge watching the series. That's great. And let's see. My question is, how do you know if something is a coping mechanism? For example, me having to listen to an interesting podcast on my phone to fall asleep. What if I just want to do nothing in bed? Mm-hmm. So go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I think not wanting to do anything at all and just being in bed, it's a totally valid choice. I don't have anything against that. Sometimes I also, like during my recovery journey, that was the only thing that I felt like doing, and so I was just doing that. Um, I would say when it comes to nighttime activities and choosing what to do, it's helpful just to observe our real motives behind our decisions, because if there is some sort of like a hint on trying to get a certain outcome out of an action like that we are going to do, then it can be a bit more tricky. But when this decision comes from the place of I just feel like doing it, and I'm okay doing it, even though if I, let's say I will not fall asleep right away, or if my night doesn't look as I want it to look like, but it's still okay for me to do this. So yeah, when this comes not as a way to escape wakefulness, but rather a way to make that wakefulness more comfortable, that can be actually quite helpful. Because in reality, what we actually want to do is to communicate to the brain that wakefulness is a time when we are safe and that we can also choose things that we find less pressuring, more comfortable for us. And if, let's say, listening to podcast or watching something is this kind of activity, there's nothing wrong with that. I have
Yeah.
no kind of like, yeah, I was also doing like a lot of things when I was in bed. I didn't want to leave bed, so I was just like staying there. Sometimes I would just grab my phone and just look at something. That
Yeah.
was okay.
Perfect answer. So it's really about the intention. Why are we doing this particular activity? And from my experience, when I didn't feel so much anxiety, when I didn't have these kind of strong emotions, and I was just laying in bed, sometimes it was so boring. And so I just wanted to make this time more nice, more comfortable. So I just either listen to some podcast, or I just get up from bed and I just watch some funny show. And it was really about signaling signaling to the brain that being awake at night is not a threat, that it's completely okay, and that it is safe. And I really like, I remember from your recovery story that you mentioned that you got, during your befriending wakefulness, you get really good at solitaire, this
Yeah.
computer game. So, yeah, that's, yeah, basically you all are very welcome to do anything that you feel that you enjoy, that you like, or just just stay and enjoy the time in your bed. So it's completely okay. And doing some mindfulness practices like acknowledging, like, what do you feel on your skin, like, or the pillow on your face, or how does the room smell, or just whatever, so really feeling how nice it is and warm in your bed can really help, can also be one of the things that helps to signal to brain, like, okay, this is safe.
Yeah.
So
No, it's well put. The one thing that came to my mind as you were saying this, also that we usually can do something, right, and then we would expect or create this kind of like strong expectation that once I do this, therefore my sleep should happen.
yes.
I find it helpful to be kind of like open to any possibility, including sleep itself. So it's not like when we are, doing something to befriend wakefulness, we are taking away a possibility of sleep happening. It's more like allowing, yes, if wakefulness happens, that's okay, but sleep can also happen. So we are kind of open to all possibilities, and we don't really exclude the possibility of sleeping. So that could be also helpful, because I notice that sometimes people get a little bit intimidated by the concept of befriending wakefulness or embracing wakefulness, because they feel like they take away this opportunity to sleep. But this concept is not really about that. It's actually just, if wakefulness happens, there is a way to approach it in a way that doesn't create even more fear. But if sleep happens, that's wonderful. So it's not like it doesn't come against the possibility of sleep happening. So just keeping in mind this as we are navigating this experience, that could be quite helpful.
Perfect. So thank you very much for a very nice answer. And we can move to okay, we have a question for Alina. So hi, Marco. And he is asking, I have listened several times your sleep talk with Michelle of your recovery stories. Thank you for that sleep talk. First time in 8 years, the time I have suffered from insomnia. I'm not afraid to wake up in the middle of the night. No fear anymore, but still I wake almost every night. When I do, I can't sleep anymore. Is there anything I can do to sleep longer?
Yeah.
So what do you think?
Yeah, it's amazing question, Marco, and I'm super glad that you have noticed already big improvement in the way that there is no more fear when it comes to, waking up in the middle of the night. I would say the process of kind of recovering from this fear and all those experiences, it's a little bit like when you unplug a fan and then it keeps still rotating for a while. So we might already start noticing a decrease in our hyperarousal, right? But the experiences themselves, they can still show up. So it might feel like, okay, I no longer fear this, but it's still like let's say my mind kind of like wakes me up at a certain hour, because it's been kind of we've been experiencing this for quite a long time. So there is some sort of like residual type of hyper awareness that can be happening, even though we no longer feel this strong anxiety. So normalizing this as a kind of like intermediary stage in the process, that can be helpful, because one of these common things that we do that might not be super productive is to actually try to force ourselves to modify how our sleep looks. But since we cannot really control that, usually it can actually backfire, or we might find ourselves even more frustrated. Allowing ourselves to go through a phase where there is no longer fear, but there is still some residual experiences, that can be helpful. And plus also knowing that, okay, currently it's probably the time when you get to learn that even though there is wakefulness, or let's say there is awakening happens, it still can be quite an okay time without having to go through those anxiety sensations and everything, because then this new memory of our awakening can already create a different relationship with this awakening itself, and then it can like it gradually starts to kind of like wind down. For me, that was also a similar, like when I was going through this learning process and I started to feeling less anxious, more kind of okay to be awake at night, I still was going through, wakefulness, even though there was already a huge decrease in my hyperarousal. It was important for me to kind of acknowledge this transition phase and let it kind of like unfold on its own without trying to micromanage this process. Because then as we kind of let it unfold naturally, then with time, we might start noticing that, let's say we have a night when we do wake up, but then we also happen to fall asleep. It can happen as this kind of what Daniel calls magical moments. It just happens out of nowhere, which again, like gives us a new input that, okay, yes, I can wake up at night, but then sleep is possible for me afterwards, right? Or maybe there will be moments when it's just like we are sleeping the whole solid chunk, but we cannot really force those moments. We cannot kind of find the formula how to ensure them. But when we are not really trying to micromanage this process and just let the journey unfold however it unfolds, that can be actually very helpful in this. So I hope that this answers the questions. Question.
I believe so. And one of the very common questions that is when people, let's say they sleep 0 and then they sleep like 4 hours, and then they ask, okay, how can I sleep longer? It's just very similar to this question. Is there anything I can do to sleep longer? And then the following question is like, okay, but how did you do that you slept 4 hours? And then people start to very often think, okay, I didn't do anything actively to produce these 4 hours of sleep. So really sleep comes from the effortlessness and just allowing things to unfold naturally. And really to allow this transition period, like when from the beginning the people were just scared and slept almost like literally like what felt like 0, and then it was starting to get better and better, or they experienced like these kind of patterns, like pendulum pattern, like they sleep some nights very well and some nights not at all, and just really allowing this transition period, like you very nicely called it, and getting okay with also the wakefulness time, and also the sleep we are getting at, and befriending this kind of maybe bumpy nights, and also the maybe the tiredness the next day, and really becoming more and more okay with anything that insomnia is throwing at us is really the way to a peaceful sleep.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, and we can do a few more. And we have a question from George, who is very scared. Hi, I'm really scared. I'm 40 and never had insomnia. 10 days ago, I suddenly started to get insomnia. Over the first 5 days, I progressively lost all ability to sleep. Such massive change for me is shocking, and I'm wondering what underlying medical conditions could cause such a sudden extreme onset. So, any ideas, Ali?
Yeah. First of all, I want to say really sorry to hear that you, George, like suffering with this, with this experience, because I can totally understand that when it comes kind of like out of nowhere, it can be so mysterious, so sorry, I'm having a call. Sorry. Yeah. It can be very mysterious and very intimidating time. I would say that, first of all, our ability to sleep is not gone or broken. It's not really possible to break this process. When it comes to this kind of identifying the source of where this experience comes from, it's helpful to recognize the division. And I think Daniel, like in one of the videos, like previous videos he makes a really nice distinction between sleep disruption and insomnia, where sleep disruption is any sort of sleep disturbance that is caused by a particular factor, which is usually like external factor. Let's say for me, I had also experience when I was taking medication, and the side effect of the medication was that I started having basically like sleepless nights for a couple of days. But then when I kind of stopped taking this medication, then my sleep returned. But then what happened? My brain kind of remembered this experience, which I was like really puzzled, very scared at that time. And now it created this kind of like a loop of fear of that experience, which then create this kind of self-perpetuating pattern. And this is what we call insomnia here. So it's like insomnia is something that is driven by the fear of wakefulness, while sleep disruption, that it can have like all sorts of different origins. But what's special about like sleep disruption is that once that initial disruptor kind of is gone, resolved, or we kind of like adjust to this, like to that disruptor, sleep also resumes. But when there is a fear of wakefulness itself, then this is something that can be resolved through working with that fear. Becoming more familiar with being awake at night and turning our perception of it. So I would say that when it comes to underlying medical conditions, it's definitely helpful. Like if you have any concerns about your health, it's totally okay to go and check your health, because when we experience any physical discomfort or anything like this, it can disrupt sleep. So sleep disruption can be kind of like a secondary nature to something else. But when there is also this pondering, this fear, this urge to avoid wakefulness, then looking into this fear and revisiting our relationship with wakefulness, that can be quite helpful, because then once that fear is no longer there, and there is no longer any other external factor to disrupt our sleep becomes just as it was before insomnia. So I hope that it kind of gives a clear picture over this. But I want to say that the ability as such to sleep cannot be broken. And I fear the same thing. When my insomnia started, it had like very quick kind of like spiral down. So I instantly went into panic mode. And I remember having the same fear, like I've lost the ability to sleep, or I somehow broke it, or I was afraid that the medication that I took somehow did something in my brain that I'm now completely unable to sleep. But with this process, and I started like unwinding those fears and untangling this, I started to realize that it was fear that was driving this ongoing self-perpetuating pattern of sleeplessness. And once it's gone, like sleep shows up. So our mechanism of sleep is still with us, even though we are afraid of not sleeping. So yeah.
Okay, I can totally relate. I have basically the same experience, and I think most of the people who have experienced insomnia, and for me, insomnia started like with 14 nights of not sleeping, what felt like 14 nights of not sleeping. And it was at the time when I was working at night, and just gradually I felt like I was losing more and more sleep, and eventually I ended up like with these 14 nights, and it scared me so much. I felt so hopeless and helpless, and I really didn't know where to turn for help. And but of course, it was all about the fear and all about the how I perceived this loss of sleep. And I just would like to also share that there are many things. There are like millions of things that can disrupt our sleep, just like you mentioned, the difference between sleep disruption and insomnia. Insomnia is all about the fear, but the sleep disruption is about medication. When we're traveling, we may lose some sleep, the jet lag, and all these kind of things. But when there is not the fear component involved, it will basically stop with when this original trigger just ceases to exist. So I would recommend, George, stay for some time in the channel, educate yourself. It's going to be very helpful for you, and you will demystify what has happened, and this will help you to overcome this initial bout of insomnia. So, and if you need more help, of course, you can reach out to us. Okay, and shall we do one more?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so okay, we have a question from JD Master. Hello, coaches. I've never had multiple consecutive nights where I slept little. It usually is 4 hours a night where sleep onset was delayed, and then the next day was back to normal. However, I'm dealing with the fear of not sleeping, of sleeping very little for consecutive nights, because I just experienced them, kind of like unlocking a fear that wasn't present or I thought was not existent. Okay. Yeah, so I think I can start here because it was also something for me that I have experienced many times, and it was very common for me to go like 4 or 5 nights consecutively to basically have all-nighters, and it was so very scary, and I felt like there's really terribly something wrong with me, like physically something is broken in my brain. And first of all, what would have helped me then would be knowing that nothing is wrong with me, there is nothing broken. It's just the huge fear of the very first night that when this night happened, it just created this huge monster that just spread over to these other nights, and I felt immense fear inside of me, like, oh my god, what if this happens another night? And it was like it became a self-perpetuating prophecy. So I was so scared, what if this happens another night, that it really happened the next night. And thanks to the sleep coach school, I have learned that if there is something to be afraid of, call for it. Okay, come here. I am really open and welcome to experience this terrible fear, because fear is just an emotion, and fear is not here to hurt you. It is here just to tell you that something is a threat. But a threat doesn't have to. Most of the times, it's not the real one. It's just a perceived threat of something happening. When we just think of the sleeplessness, then there is it's just uncomfortable. The problem is that we associate the uncomfortable with dangerous, but when in reality it's uncomfortable and safe. So that's why this is what we are supposed to learn. And when you're afraid of these consecutive nights of not sleeping, then you then being open to this possibility of experiencing is eventually what paradoxically makes them not to happen again. And this is what also happened for me too. I was afraid so much of them, but when I opened myself, okay, I might not sleep the next night, but what I can do is bring popcorn and a good movie, so I can make this this wakeful time really nice, and I can enjoy it. And this is what just helped me to help this fear to fall apart. And it has happened several times that I have these consecutive nights of not sleeping after learning this, but it has never been so intense, and it has never been so scary anymore, because I learned how to befriend wakefulness. And so, what do you think, Ali? What is your experience?
I think this is spot on what you shared, and I totally relate to this experience as well. Also, the person who asks, I completely understand the fear of consecutive sleepless nights because, first of all, we have already a memory. What I usually say, like it's traumatic memory of previous struggle, and now we, of course, naturally, we don't want to experience it for longer than that. So, first of all, this fear is completely understandable. I would say most of people who go through something like this experience that. And the thing is that even though there is like the brain is trying to protect us from it, right? It says like, no, you shouldn't get those consecutive nights of no sleep, right? Then we get them because there is the fear. So it's the brain kind of like, acts as a self-fulfilling prophecy where it creates a scary, like the scary scenario, and then it kind of like goes in there. So I would say what you shared this is also very insightful, that when we no longer fear that experience, then it's this is when we start to feeling more safe, and our hyperarousal goes down, and our natural sleep drive starts to show up, meaning that the consecutive stretch night starts to kind of like starts to end. So so I would say just what you shared is really spot on, and it is about becoming more comfortable with the discomfort. I know that it's incredibly difficult in practice. It's always easy in theory because it's, yeah, like embrace wakefulness. But when we went through something like this, it's natural there's going to be a certain amount of resistance coming from our survival brain.
Mhm.
And also acknowledging that it's okay to feel scared during this time, that can also take away some part of this pressure and help us to be with this moment as uncomfortable as it is. And also, I just want to say that, when we talk about like becoming okay with something, we don't really mean liking it. And I feel like I need to keep like repeating that, because usually, like, I remember like when I first learned about the acceptance and befriending wakefulness, my idea of that was like, okay, so I should enjoy it, I should find it like exciting, joyful. But in reality, I realized like I cannot gather this kind of like mood and this attitude. uh, and then I felt like, oh, I'm failing myself somehow because I'm not enjoying this. But in reality, accepting and embracing wakefulness doesn't mean that we are going like we should like it or we should prefer it. It's okay to not like being awake. That's what you said, basically, acknowledging that this can be uncomfortable. It is
Yeah.
uncomfortable. Like, every human being wants to sleep well and wants to feel good. That's not a crime. So with recognition of our true desires and validating, yes, I would like to sleep more, or I would like to have a peaceful night, we can also start realizing that even though I would like to have this outcome, if it happens, I'm gonna get through this. I don't
Mhm.
have to like it, but I'm gonna be okay. So this is the kind of like the usual way how acceptance is being more applicable.
Mhm.
That makes sense. But yeah.
Absolutely. And there is one more explanation that I like, and I think I heard it in the Dare podcast. And it's like when your brain perceives something as a threat, it sends you this fight or flight response, and it sends you this energy. So basically, you get into hyperarousal, and the more you are afraid of it, the more energy it is sending to you. So your brain is basically like, "Are you afraid of it? Great! I'll send you some energy. So let's do this. Let's fight it, or let's fight it. It doesn't matter. You must survive, right?" So the more you are afraid of it, the more hyperarousal you are going to get. So it really becomes the cycle, and it's about showing our brain that this thing you are afraid of it is safe.
Yeah.
So, yep. Okay, I think we can conclude here, and I thank you very much, Alina. And
Thank you.
yeah, and I wish you a Merry Christmas, and
You too.
I hope to talk to you soon. Bye
Yeah.
bye.
Bye.